family members don't understand that it's not just physical symptoms, it's emotional, it's everything. Your body is changing, your hormones are changing.
If I don't start eating eggs, my baby's not going to be healthy.
Child which is not chubby is not healthy, which is not true. Human milk is very different in composition than cow's milk in general. It's not the same. It's not one replacement for the other. Any parent watching this, you should try this. 2 weeks, you'll see a difference in as little as 2 weeks.
What's the number one food every new mother should cut out?
Now there are...
Roshni, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Deepika. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. I've been following your work since such a long time, seeing you in all the fests, and it's so nice that you're doing this. I'm so happy and proud of you.
Thank you so much. I want to get as much education to mothers out there as possible.
Yeah. There's not enough knowledge out there for mothers or pregnancies, and especially women going through pregnancies on a vegetarian/vegan diet.
So your work in reversing conditions like PCOS and thyroid through vegetarian diet is remarkable.
Yeah.
Can you share a real life experience with us?
One of the leading female entrepreneurs of the country I was working with, she's such a strong role model, and she's literally the boss, and working with building brands and building organizations and having people look up to her and taking care of families, thousands of families under her, was going through this menopausal period. And because I've been working with her for a while, I've only seen her strong and very passionate about health and wellness and taking care of herself. And when she was going through her own menopause period, we used to have calls on a weekly basis, and I would get calls from her, and then there were weeks where 30 minutes she would just cry. No reason. She would just cry. There was an emotional outburst and just in tears, and after 30 minutes say thank you so much, feeling better, and hang up the phone. But that shows generally menopause is it's a topic which is not talked about, right? Especially in an Indian context, when a woman is going through menopause, family members don't understand that it's not just physical symptoms, it's emotional, it's everything. Your body is changing, your hormones are changing, there's hot flashes, there's so much happening in terms of hormonal imbalance. And menopause is such a thing that you cannot fix it when you're going through it. So let's say someone has diabetes, you start making nutritional changes, you'll start seeing your numbers improve. But because menopause is hormonal, things you've done in your 20s, 30s, 40s determine how your menopausal period is going to be. Wow. So it's not something you can fix it. So it takes time, So generally I educate women to start early, working on your hormonal health earlier. But this was one of the stories which I remember. We work not only in terms of our nutritional changes, especially women now. Menopause is associated with endocrine or hormone disruptors in the environment. Things you're in touch with, skincare products, hair care products. I think one of the things I love about Soap Wellbeing is you all don't use plastic. Yeah. And plastic exposure, all of these can cause a hormonal imbalance. And hormonal imbalance leads to menopausal symptoms. So while food-wise she was doing really well, she was in touch with a lot of chemicals. That's what her work demanded, her job demanded.
Okay.
So that's her symptoms. So we did introduce healing modalities like IR sauna therapies and a lot of alternative healing modalities, and things did get better over time. But that's something that strikes me, that it does not matter what age you are or how strong you are. I think everyone should understand that menopause can be a difficult time for a mother, for your wife, for the women in the house. With regard to thyroid, we associate thyroid most often with weight gain. So let's say you start gaining weight, you want to get your thyroid levels checked. But thyroid hormone is responsible for many things, including your digestion, your skin health, your hair health. Everything in a way is associated with your thyroid hormone imbalance. It's not just weight. Even depression, mood management is thyroid hormone. So there was this other college kid which I was working with, struggling with acne and weight gain, and with the normal profile which we test, parameters, her thyroid levels were very, very high. And parents were concerned that at such a young age, should we start medication? And for anyone struggling with thyroid out there, my suggestion to you is, because thyroid hormone is responsible for so many other hormones, right? If your TSH is high or low, work with a doctor. At that time, medicine management is required. Can you over time reverse it or bring it into remission? Absolutely, you can work on it. But don't delay just thinking that I'll start making lifestyle changes, nutritional changes, and I'll manage it. Because by the time you manage it, you would have probably caused damage to your digestive health or your reproductive health or so many other things.
Okay.
With this kid though, which happens often with kids, it's easier to work with kids because they understand, they learn. Once they have a role model, once they look up to you, they will learn from you. We did get her TSH down from 14, 15 it started, and in the normal range, which is about 3.53 when we were last working together. Nutritional lifestyle changes took about 6 months, but very much you can manage your thyroid without medicines. But till you don't find the right support, reach out and take medical help.
For a person like me, I'm so against medicines. And for like, an expert to
Yeah.
tell me that it's okay to take medicine
should,
until
yeah.
you figure out
Yes.
how to deal with it.
Yes, because a lot of times thyroid is also such a thing. No, yeah, weight gain is one of the symptoms, but many it will go undetected for a long time. So because you don't have any physical symptoms happening, you just tend to, it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
You just tend to not take any action, and that's not right.
And what's the single biggest misconception expectant or new mothers have about going plant-based?
That your baby is not going to get adequate nutrition stores, most often in the form of calcium or protein, because now you're pregnant, you should be eating for two, which you believe you should be eating for two, and then if you're dropping out, if you're not eating enough food groups, then your baby is not going to get calcium, protein, iron, which is the most common misconception which I've seen.
So when I was pregnant, I was reading a ton of books, and I was reading books like very, very highly recommended
Yeah.
about nutrition during pregnancy. It really emphasized on the fact that I should start consuming meat.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is not happening. So I returned to the vegetarian section, and there it mentioned that you need to have eggs, period, right? It would just not talk about, like, it spoke about plants in general, but they were really forcing me to have eggs. And after 20 pages, I just shut down the book. And I was so disappointed. I didn't know what do I do. And I felt like somehow if I don't start eating eggs, my baby's not going to be healthy.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of like vegetarian mothers out there who want to stay fit even during pregnancy and postpartum. For them, what do you have to say?
So we come from a predominantly vegetarian country. Vegetarian, no egg country. So most of the people in India who are vegetarian don't necessarily consume egg directly. And India is also known for its population. If you talk to your grandmothers, they would deliver like half a cricket team worth of kids and get back to managing the household like nothing happened, with very healthy pregnancies and breastfeeding and healthy kids, very, very healthy kids with good immunities. We never had a problem. I think that's what one is lacking, because it's very cultural specific. Now, if you're living in cultures where meat is very common, coastal areas, it is a source of nutrients. So it's going to show up. But if you're looking at predominantly vegetarian countries where meat was not common, then you also read about how your diet can be very, very healthy without any meat products, pregnancy or not. That being said, yes, third trimester, a little bit in the second trimester, nutritional needs change. So nutrients change. Iron specifically, you need more of in the third trimester. Protein, calcium requirements change. You can very well get this on a plant-based diet, on a healthy vegan diet. See, pregnancy is such a personal journey, right? Let's say someone's caloric requirements are about 1500 calories in the first 3 months of pregnancy. But the person has been puking a lot. They've been having morning sickness and nausea and vomiting. They're not able to keep a lot of food in. Then that person's nutritional requirements will be different. Meaning, when I'm working with a person like that, I'm trying to give them minimum volume of food, so they don't have to eat a lot, but maximum nutrients. So meat, eggs is minimum volume, but nutrient intake is high.
Right.
It's a very personal journey. Now I can also get that on a plant-based. There are a lot of ways to cover that on a plant-based also. But that's a personal journey for that person. Versus there are people who want to eat every 2 hours. There are people whose their cravings, their hunger is going to be much higher. So because it's a very personal journey, worthwhile in that period, work with an expert in terms of planning your meals. It's not going to be one answer for everyone. Everyone's requirements will be different. But that being said, plant-based diets are not only for surviving. Babies born from mothers who follow plant-based diet thrive. They are protected against a lot of diseases. Their immunity is better. They are not exposed to something called obesogens. So obesogens are basically compounds which can be found in meat or processed meats, which puts your baby at the risk of obesity later in life.
Oh, interesting.
So it changes the amount of fat cells the baby is born with
Okay.
and puts your child at the risk of obesity later in life. So your baby is protected. Dairy consumption in some studies has also been linked to type 1 diabetes in kids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's people, the kids born from mothers on a plant-based diet have a lot of protection against some diseases, and they thrive.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very reassuring actually, for somebody who wants to follow a plant-based
Yes.
diet. So you spoke about how you can include iron, calcium, B12 through plant-based diet. Can you give us few examples of that, of actually plants providing that?
You're looking at nutrients, right? Especially the important ones, like you're talking about the iron, calcium, protein, B12, D3 aside, but the top few nutrients. Look at whole grains and pulses. Yes, vegetables and fruits also have these nutrients, but vegetables and fruits are so high in water content. If cucumbers like 95% water.
Yeah.
So while you might think you're getting a lot of nutrients, it's really a lot of water. It's hydrating. Some minerals, some vitamins, yes, you're getting. But whole grains and pulses, because they're dried and they're shrink, they're packed. They're literally packed with nutrients.
Okay.
So for the calcium sources, I would go towards the soy and the tofu,
Okay.
plant-based milk alternatives. Yes, you have some spinach and you have some vegetables. Similarly, for iron, whole grains and some leafy green vegetables are a great source. But B12 is a unique one. B12 deficiency is a now generation problem, just because we don't have soil exposure as much, and we used to be able to get enough B12 because we used to play outdoors and touch the soil, and through that the skin used to absorb some, and we used to make our own B12. But because we don't have soil exposure, we are more covered, we are more cleaner,
Yeah.
which is necessary.
If I'm B12 deficit, can I increase my B12 by walking on soil?
I wish. No. Thing is, our gut microbiome has changed a lot from before. Also, so the absorption and the amount of B12 and also the soil quality has changed a lot. It's just not enough. And a lot of people do tell me that they don't want to take supplements, or can they do gardening or walking barefoot, or but it's really not a reliable way in terms of getting your B12. From a safety perspective, I would say everyone, especially pregnant mothers, B12 is a must. Folic acid also, that's a little bit pre-pregnancy, because you need folic acid for the baby's spinal development in the first few weeks, or first few weeks to first few months of pregnancy. And you won't know when you'll conceive the baby. And after the first 6 weeks, it's not as important.
Okay.
And if you miss out that 6-week window, then it could put your baby at risk. Most of us are not deficient in folic acid, but that's why you start a folic acid supplement when you're planning your pregnancy journey.
Right.
But B12, D3, folic acid are absolutely must. And depending on how your pregnancy's journey has been, iron might be important in the second stage of pregnancy.
Okay. How about breastfeeding?
From the mother's perspective, yes, the B12, D3 continues and a healthy diet.
Okay.
And for the first 6 months, that's enough, and your toddler will not need anything else.
Okay.
And then based on the requirements, you also later on at a later stage, you do have B12 and D3 for kids,
Yeah.
which is safe for kids. So I would, consider that depending on the age and the growth of the baby. Yeah.
There's also some brain DHA supplement given to infants again,
Yes,
starting
yes.
from like 1 month.
Yes, a little bit later. 1 month is too early, but brain development happens in the earlier stages of your, for the first few years, in fact. It's really, really important that a good supply of omega-3 fatty acids is added into the diet or given in the form of supplements. Now, let's say that the kid is also being fed a lot of processed food in the form of biscuits and oily food used at home, or processed food that could be very high in omega-6.
Oh.
If your omega-6 intake is very, very high, then omega-3 is not absorbed in the body.
Oh.
Because omega-3 and omega-6 fight for the same receptors, and they are limited receptors. So if your omega-6 intake is high, omega-6 is going to go and occupy those receptors. And there's no place for omega-3 to go.
Wow.
So that's why an additional supplement of omega-3 to try and keep up that ratio of omega-3 being slightly higher.
Okay.
Not a problem I've seen in kids who are generally following a healthy diet, high in nuts and seeds,
Okay.
walnuts, almonds and chia and all of that.
Okay.
But definitely, and sometimes you're living in a joint family, how much will you control?
Right.
yeah, grandparents are going to do what grandparents want to do, and they will sneak in things that the kids should not eat. And so it's, as parents, there's only so much you can control. So
Okay,
yeah,
so it
you
is
do the best.
essential to give.
It is essential.
Coming back to PCOS and thyroid issues, for somebody facing those issues, they're trying to conceive. What are the first 3 diet changes that she should make?
So with PCOS, this can become frustrating because if you have PCOS and you're trying to conceive, especially if it's extreme to the point that you're not getting your cycles regularly, then you don't know when you're ovulating, and it can be very, very frustrating. And generally, sperm quality is also down, egg quality is also down. Working with parents now, emotional counseling is something we do very often because everyone's waiting till they can push it as far as they can push having kids, and then it's right now, next month, I want to have a child.
Right,
It's
yeah.
like that. And if you're struggling with PCOS, it can take a couple of years till you can
Yeah.
conceive naturally.
Yeah.
If we have to talk in terms of foods that you have to must drops, number one will absolutely be dairy products because it is sex hormones from the animal. Animals are given these sex hormones and growth hormones, which through the milk is coming into your body.
Interesting.
And causing a hormonal havoc. So one would absolutely, no questions asked, be dairy products. Second, especially if it's women with PCOS, I would say foods high in something called AGEs. AGEs is advanced glycation end products. Now, advanced glycation end products are foods which cause inflammation and oxidation in the body, making your PCOS symptoms worse.
Okay.
AGEs are concentrated in high animal fat and high animal protein rich foods. So think of barbecued meats would be high in AGEs. That's animal fat, and every time animal fat, animal protein is exposed to heat, you have very high AGE levels. When plant proteins and plant fats are exposed to heat, they also produce AGEs. So roasted cashews will have more AGEs than raw cashews. Roasted or air fried tofu will have more AGEs than boiled tofu. Yeah, so they do. It's not as high as animal protein, animal, but it's still higher. So if I'm working with someone with PCOS and fertility is in your pipeline, I would also drop high AGE food. So I would tell them just switch from roasted nuts to raw nuts. Don't air fry tofu, boil it instead. So tempeh or tofu, or so I would switch to, don't go for the frying, the broiling and the baking. Try to go for the boiling and the steaming and the pressure cooking. That's all still lower heat, so that would be better. Keep a watch on processed foods. And most of us think processed food is going out to a restaurant and eating. But open your fridge, condiments is a huge processed food. So things like, ketchups and stir fry sauces, and a lot of times you're not having a look at what you're eating, or like crisps and chips and biscuits and all of those would be something that I would take a step back. And it's not very hard. Once you start making snacks at home, it becomes a lifestyle, it becomes a habit. It's really not very hard. Dedicate that 1 hour in the week on a Saturday, Sunday to prepare for the rest of the week. It's really not hard.
Is soy sauce one of the processed foods?
I would rate it very, very low in terms of processed foods.
Okay.
Because it does add a beautiful flavor to yours, and mostly it's made with only soybeans, not a lot of additives. The only thing I would look out for would be the sodium content. If it's very, very high sodium, we tend to overuse soy sauce.
Yeah.
Something in a hypertension problem, but otherwise it's absolutely
Safe.
okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Safe.
Books were recommending for you to have eggs also during breastfeeding is because they have some chemical called choline. Where do you substitute that with plant?
Your body makes enough choline. You don't need it. In fact, the choline from eggs in the stomach is converted into something called trimethylene oxide, TMAO,
Okay.
which changes your gut microbiome, making it more inflammatory. So for people struggling actually with IBD, IBS issues, we drop eggs because it is high in choline, leading to trimethylene oxide, making it worse. So you don't really need a separate choline source. There are some plant-based sources having a little bit of choline, and your body does a good job in terms of making, unless a very, very niche population where you're not able to process, or your needs are much, much higher, which does not come to breast feeding
Okay.
moms. You don't really need choline supply.
Okay. A lot of doctors also recommend feeding your infants eggs
Yeah,
for their
yeah,
development.
yeah. So, like I said, when you're looking at very low volume food and maximum nutrient content, then eggs, meat would be one of those things.
Okay.
Again, very small population, but with most of us, as long as you're planning your diet high in nutrient-rich plant foods, we don't have to worry about child's development. That being said, kids raised on a vegetarian slash vegan diet do have a slightly low weight height
Yeah.
when growing up, and that's completely normal, because by the time they reach their teens, they do match up to their peers when it comes to kids eating a meat-based diet. So it's not like the growth is stunned. Growth is not stunned. I also think this is coming from experience working with Indian parents. We have a sense that chubby kids are healthy kids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is not right.
Yeah. Can you please talk about that a little bit?
Generally, when there's a comparison that her friend is a lot more chubbier, and when I have to tell the parents, but your child is in the ideal height weight range and there's nothing to worry about, so chubby is not necessarily healthy.
Yeah.
If in fact having kids of ideal birth weight, height and weight range is an advantage, right? Especially now with the rise in chronic diseases because of obesity.
Yeah.
And we almost feel like a child which is not chubby is not healthy, which is not true.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of mothers
Do you
relate
face
to
that
this.
with your kids?
Because I've read so much about it. So my child is relatively leaner
Yeah.
and taller because his dad is very tall.
Yeah.
But in general, what I've noticed is people get a little bit more, bothered with the
Yes.
fact that their kids are not chubby enough.
Yes.
Like, for example, my friend, she's like, oh, my son is like so thin. And I'm like, what is his weight, height? Did you
Yeah.
check with your doctor?
That's completely normal.
It's completely normal.
Yeah.
And also what I see is because you breastfeed your kid, right? You don't put like a bottle. Okay, this is the minimum
True.
ml that, my
Yes.
kid should
Yeah.
have.
True.
So I don't listen to doctors, right? I listen to my kid when it comes to
Yeah.
feeding. I listen to his cues. When
Yeah.
he's done, he's done. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
I don't force like, oh, you need to complete this.
Yeah.
Right? So I think because I'm a little bit more educated, I'm kind of like, okay. But I see mothers and grandparents being so concerned. It's very important, I think, like for us to talk about it. Even
Yeah.
for mothers watching, to have leaner kids is completely fine, like
It's
you said.
completely fine. It's completely fine as long as they're in the ideal, height weight range, or even slightly on the lower end, or just at the ideal height weight range. It's completely fine. Girl kids on a high dairy diet do tend to get their menstrual cycles earlier. Menstrual cycles are much more irregular, painful, or heavier, and there is a direct correlation between dairy consumption and hormonal health.
So when you say dairy, is it just milk or does that also include paneer, yogurt?
Start point of everything is milk, right? Cows would give milk only after the birth of a calf. That's when the dairy, the milk production starts. It's after the calf is born. But dairy cows today have been genetically modified to give milk during pregnancy, because the gestational period for the cow is a waste to the farmer otherwise.
Right.
What are you going to do with the animal? You have to
yeah.
continue feeding it, you have to continue providing real estate and shelter and everything, but it's not giving you anything in return.
Right.
Yeah. So imagine being pregnant and breastfeeding at the same time.
Wow. Yeah.
Just forget the physical and emotional and all of that. The milk coming out of that body is just so high in growth hormones and sex hormones, because your body has a lot of growth and sex hormones,
Yeah.
which is required for the baby. And that milk then being circulated and comes to your glass.
For Indian households, like I have been asked, like, okay, so when you stop breastfeeding, when do you start cow milk? Have you started giving cow's milk?
Pediatricians, doctors are educated enough to tell parents to avoid cow's milk under any case, at least till the age of 1.
Okay.
It does lead to colic symptoms, and it does lead to indigestion and gastric in the baby.
Okay.
And it's pretty obvious when it leads to. So even the mother who's drinking a lot of dairy products and then breastfeeding will
Yeah.
have a baby high in colic symptoms, colicky baby, and gastric distress, etc.
Yeah.
So I have seen most often doctors also educating the parents not to introduce dairy milk till a little bit later in life when the baby's digestive system is a little bit developed and able to better digest milk. I think people think that if you stop one form of milk, you need to start another form of milk.
Yeah.
And that's not true, because human milk is very different in composition than cow's milk in general. It has a very, very low protein content. It has very low casein
Yeah.
content, and cow's milk is very high in casein, and it's not the same. It's not one replacement for the other.
So what do you give them? If somebody's trying to follow like a vegan diet with their
Yeah.
kids and realize that it's not that great for their
Yeah.
kids, what do you replace that with?
In an Indian household, food is prepared keeping an adult in mind. For instance, kids love texture, they love color, they are excited about flavors, not the only thing they're excited about. They really, so if you're making a khichdi for yourself, example, the child, khichdi has no texture in it. It's just soft, it's mushy. If you're not going to add, like, even it could be simple thing as you take papad and you make, and just sprinkle a little bit on top. That's texture. That's an additional texture on the food.
Right.
Even that simple thing can excite the child. But you have to keep in mind that when the food is being served, even though it's the same food being prepared, the presentation, the texture, the color, everything should be modified for the child.
Interesting.
And trust me, if you do that, the child will eat. If it's an infant, then a formula would be a better option. Which is, formulas are made, kept in mind, to mimic breast milk.
Okay.
So it's closer to breast milk than cow's milk. So a formula, and especially I highly suggest, don't go for a whey formula, or don't go for a formula which has dairy again. So you're not doing any good.
Right.
But find a dairy-free formula for the child. And
Okay. I'm on a mom's group and they often talk about, this formula did not suit my child and I shifted to this formula. So anything in specific that they should look out for in formula?
That's true. And it's going to be specific, because soy formula is mostly the most, but many kids are not able to see symptoms in terms of allergy or sensitivity. Then you have to find something that is soy free. Dairy free is one which I suggest all parents, but then it has to be very child specific. Have you used any?
No.
That being said?
No, I've not used any. Just to be aware of, like, even this thing, I was not aware that formula is also based on whey.
Yeah.
Or soy. Like, I was not aware of that. And honestly, a lot of mothers also, they just go by what the doctors say, right? So just to be aware of, like, question the doctor that, I don't want to give the whey-based formula. I want to give something else. So even that is a conversation.
To openly say that I'm not giving my child dairy is almost the society looking at it like you're depriving your child of something, which can be difficult as a social, this thing. I've had a parent work with me who is a nutritionist herself. And she had older kids, 7-8-year-olds, and she would go to drop them to school, and she would say that, hey, please don't feed them dairy when there was a birthday cake or something, because they are off dairy. And the teachers would almost make her feel bad, or almost yell at her that you can't do this and this is not right. And she's like, I'm a nutritionist, I know what I'm doing for my child, but they would make her feel less about herself, and that can be a little intimidating and scary. I think a lot of schools now have done a good job in terms of understanding, and genuinely kids are struggling with more allergies than ever before. But it can be difficult from a social perspective. What has your opinion been on that? Have you faced that?
The only thing that I faced with, so I love dairy, as a kid, because also I grew up in a farmhouse, right? So we had our own cows, and I love dairy. I used to love drinking milk and paneer and everything. But one thing that I noticed during my pregnancy and post-pregnancy as well is whenever I was off dairy, my baby did not have any colic.
Yeah. Any parent watching this, you should try this 2 weeks. You'll see a difference in as little as 2 weeks of just dropping dairy. If you have a child who's struggling with colic symptoms, then 2 weeks is just so little time in terms of seeing any difference.
That's very good, actually. I think a lot of, mothers I know complain about colic, and they are so, this is not non-negotiable for them. To have cow's milk in the house or to have dairy products, so why not try it out?
Yeah, I think it comes from two. One is the fear, because you've been told so much with regard to how good dairy is for you, or especially ghee is for you. Sharing client stories. There was a client, again, it's a postpartum case where you're overfed, overfed a lot, and you're overfed a lot of ghee. And I forgot which culture where she was from, but this particular culture, 1.5 liter of ghee she had to drink in one day. Something like that. It was some tradition like that. 1.5 liter. Imagine, that's like crazy amount. And then eat a lot of ghee during the postpartum phase. And she was diagnosed with cholesterol a few months later when she started working with us. So people don't realize that, especially ghee, one, very high in AGs. We were talking about AGs earlier. Very, very high in AGs because it's pure fat heated, right? For 40-45 minutes, you heat it on the gas to make ghee. Very, very high in AGs. For PCOS, it's a disaster. But generally, it's very high in saturated fats and cholesterol. So why would you give yourself, that amount of? It's not healthy. So having the ghee laddus and lot of
Yeah.
ghee postpartum is not really healthy.
We have this thing called japa, after birth,
Yeah.
where a lady comes and takes care of you and your food. So I got the japa lady, and I had to let her go in 5 days because all she was feeding
Isn't
me.
that like a longer period? Oh yeah, you had to let it go.
I had to just let her go because in my head I'm like, what nutrition am I eating? I'm not
Yeah.
having. It's just like ghee laden
Yeah, it's a lot
swali
of-
and like
yeah.
things like that. And in my head I'm like, aren't you supposed to take care of my nutrition? It was not like being done. So, but a lot of
This
us,
education is not there.
yeah, like,
Intention is so right and so beautiful, and I think India has a beautiful culture in general of japa, but education is just misdirected.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, I bounced back pretty quickly after delivering, and I think all the credit goes to my husband because he did all the research of
Yeah.
whatever foods I should eat. He got
That's
it
so sweet.
prepared. Yeah, and
Yeah.
if I had done the job, I feel like I would just be a different person now.
Yeah. See, the tradition was not wrong. The
Yeah.
tradition was right because we came from poverty, we came from famine, we came from limited supplies, where the women of the house had to bounce back
Yeah.
pretty quickly, and there were limited supplies in terms of foods and resources. And what made sense back then, it does not make sense now. Our lifestyle is very different. Our movement is very, very less. We are really not moving around a lot. We don't have a lot of activity. We are not farming anymore. We are not really hunting and gathering anymore. So I think keeping the traditional values, but we need to change the way we do a lot of things today, especially when it comes to postpartum care.
Yeah. People often talk about foods you should consume to increase your milk supply.
Galactagon-rich foods.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Indian culture has a lot of these galactagon-rich foods. What I tell my clients generally is keep your calorie intake and water intake. Breastfeeding is water. So it's not like if I drink more milk, I'll make more milk. It's not that. It's not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you don't have to drink more milk to make more milk. But drinking about that and measuring it, 3.5 to 4 liters of water, it is very difficult because your sleep timing is different and you don't have water always around you, and your priority is always your baby. Because you become selfless. It's just women become selfless at that time. But monitoring the water intake and calorie intake overall is more than enough. Galactocon supplements if necessary, but like you said, it's a demand and supply with the baby, and for some women it clicks, for some it can be difficult. It can be a difficult time where they might have to pump and feed, and for some, so that depends on child to child.
Okay. No specific foods that you would recommend?
All the laddus, which we generally make, the gun, the sesame seeds, which we traditionally use in our Indian diet.
Yeah.
But because you specifically asked, I'll leave a PDF with a couple of recipes in the section below.
Okay.
So with only Indian recipes, anyone can make it at home.
Great. Thank you. What are the go-to healing foods after
There's so
pregnancy?
many. Okay, when you're looking at healing, there's physical healing if it's a C-section, then the stitches and the physical healing which needs to happen, for which we need to go towards the anti-inflammatory foods, which is your turmerics and the ginger and anything in the allicin family, which is your garlic, ginger, onion, that family. A lot of the leafy green vegetables and high nitric oxide foods, beetroots, leafy green vegetables, those kinds of foods play a big role. And then it is about calories because you're going to start breastfeeding almost instantaneously. So eating foods which are root vegetables play a great role. Potatoes, sweet potatoes, yams, carrots, those, and whole grains and pulses. So millets and rajma, jowar, any sort of millets and lentil combination
Okay.
plays a great role. It depends how much the mother is able to eat. So with a lot of mothers I work with right after the postpartum period, we divide it into 4 to 5 meals because they're not able to eat a lot at once.
Yeah.
So it's smaller meals divided through the day. So we would, let's say, do a soup at 5 p.m. and then a dinner at 6:30, 7 p.m. And then depending on the breast milk and how much they're staying up at night. So intervals as such.
Okay.
And foods which naturally trigger the release of your sleep hormones towards the second half of the day. So you're able to sleep a little bit better. But everything has to be centered around how the baby's timing is.
Okay. This is a personal question. So I've struggled a lot with consuming protein. During pregnancy and also post pregnancy. And I don't like supplements. I don't like protein powders. And since I don't want to have eggs, right? For me to have good protein sources, and also I didn't have the time to think about like my meals, right? So all I would just like chuck down like protein shake, just thinking, okay, I'm done with my protein intake, you know. So if somebody does not want to do that, and also I understand that protein, for some people it's not very, you know, digested that well in the body. So do you have like a very simple short recipe for somebody, either in the form of a shake or any kind of food that they should have every single day? Honestly, new mothers don't care about taste. They don't care about anything. They care about simplicity and the fact that some protein is going in their body. So can you give us some hacks for that?
So as much as we would like that one meal to have 40 grams of protein, one problem with pregnancy is it can also lead to constipation. Protein causes more constipation. So if you're having that one protein heavy meal and you're pregnant, your constipation symptoms might get worse, leading to fissures and fistulas and other problems related to constipation. So I like to really break it down. But that being said, my go-to, especially for women who work out, and then it can translate to women who don't, is sattu shake. Because sattu does have quite a lot of protein packs. So you make it's like a protein shake, but you're making it to sattu, which is roasted chicken, roasted ram powder. So you're still getting that alternate. It's a good, fairly balanced meal because it has carbs and proteins both, and then you add a fat source or something. Like yogurt or something. So you make a sattu shake. So that is a great go-to source. But that being said, whole point is to educate yourself how you can add a little bit throughout the day. Like for instance, I don't think we ever make a salad at home without a protein source, and that can be chickpeas, kidney beans. Smoked tofu is our recent favorite, so we do smoked tofu. There are a lot of brands out there. It's really good. It's just smoked tofu. There's no ingredient besides just tofu, and we just chop it, so you're getting a nice barbecue flavor with your salad. And we do salads before lunch every day, which is a lifestyle change. So you're adding a little bit of protein there. Then the lunch will be one of the South Indian chutneys made with protein. So like a horse gram chutney, dal chutney, any form of a lentil-based chutney, or a poriyal which has a protein, or like a sundal which has a protein. But it always, the pickle part of it is the protein part. So we would add that, and then the dinner will always either have yogurt or buttermilk, and both of these are soy made. So you have a little bit over there. So if you just plan to have a little bit here, a little bit here, it really adds up. For women who are pregnant, I would take the protein requirements to 1.5, 1.7 grams per kilogram body weight. But when you're not pregnant, you don't need more than 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram body weight. So we overestimate sometimes our protein requirement. But even if I'm working out an hour, not consciously focusing on muscle gain, but want to maintain or lose my body weight, 1 gram is enough. You don't need more. 1.2 if I'm focusing on muscle gain, 1.5 during pregnancy, third trimester onwards. Some women, we take it up to there, but constipation has to be kept in mind because it can make your symptoms worse. And you're absolutely right, protein powders can make them more constipated.
So when I think of sattu powder, like you said, it's very doable, right? You just like mix it even with water for that matter. How much of it should you have? 2 tablespoons, 2 to 3 tablespoons is what I suggest, because not necessarily you'll be able to digest it. If you're having it for the first time, first few times at least, it can be difficult to digest. Then see your tolerance and and if you're digesting it well, then 2 or 3 tablespoons with every meal?
No, just one. I would have like a sattu dry fruit milkshake. which has sattu and then a few other dry fruits and other components. So as a whole meal, you have about 12-15 grams of protein. It's just not the sattu powder. It's like a milkshake,
Okay.
but it has a combination.
Okay.
Yeah, add some soy milk, you'll add some more protein to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That makes it very easy, honestly,
It
for
is,
mothers.
yeah.
Is drinking cow's milk during breastfeeding harmful for your baby?
Yeah, yeah. Colic also puts your baby at the risk of certain diseases, but colic would be a big digestive disorders.
What's the number one food every new mother should cut out?
Sugar, I think it would be sugar.
Okay.
I wouldn't do processed sugar, especially if you're breastfeeding or if you're pregnant. Then I would limit processed sugar as much as possible. Switch to dates and fruits and all the other alternatives.
Can food alone reverse PCOS or thyroid?
5 years ago, my answer would be 100% yes, because we were not exposed to as much hormone disruptors. Now it is a huge lever uh, in terms of still being the biggest change maker. But it's not the thing that's solely reverse. I think we have to also work in terms of changing our environment and stress management and your circadian cycle. So now it's a combination of everything and your fitness than just the food. Yeah.
Okay.
Though that being said, food still is the biggest contributor.
What's the biggest lie about needing meat or dairy in pregnancy?
That it is nutritionally dense and there's no other option to get your nutrients from. Now there are, see, from a perspective of, like I said, kids or women on vegan vegetarian diet, their kids thrive and are protected against certain diseases. From an ethical perspective also, a lot of mothers don't want to consume dairy and meat. And forcing them and saying that, hey, this is the right thing for your baby and you have to do it because it's the right thing for your baby, that is wrong. Yeah. And for anyone watching this from an ethical perspective, if you want to drop,
Yeah.
plant-based diets are enough.
What's your 30-second hack for an energy boost when a new mother is totally wiped out?
Laddus. Laddus in different forms depending on what we are looking at. If it's in the evening, having herbs which can help you sleep better, or melatonin releasing. If it is towards the morning half, then energy. If it is galactogong, milk supply related, then galactogong rich herbs. Winters are different, summers are different. I think one thing beautiful you have from an Indian kitchen is there's so much variety, seasonal basis and herbs and spices.
Yeah.
So come up with combinations based on that.
True or false? A vegan pregnancy puts your baby at risk.
Unplanned vegan pregnancy puts your baby at risk.
Plant-based eating is too expensive for most Indian families.
No, not. I don't think that's a right way of putting it. Plant-based dairy can be expensive. So plant-based yogurt or plant-based milk alternatives can be expensive. But plant-based food is roti, sabzi, dal, chawal. It's really not that expensive. I think if you Google for Earth Story, I forgot the thing. They make smoked tofu, and it comes from Audible. But Earth Story founder Dhaval is the same person who does it. I got recently 200 grams into 8 packets per month into 3 months supply of smoked tofu. Do the maths. I don't know how many that would come up to. 4,300 rupees or just slightly over that.
Amazing.
And that's ridiculously cheap.
Wow, that is cheap, yeah.
That's very, very cheap.
Okay.
So it's about finding these underrated brands. And
I'll
it's
link them
just-
here.
You please link them, yeah.
Was there a time you doubted plant-based living yourself, and what changed your mind?
So when you just go vegan, the time when you switch from and I came from a high dairy vegetarian diet and high protein vegetarian diet because I was competing for a bodybuilding competition. When you're on a high dairy vegetarian diet, you're getting a lot of female sex hormones from the dairy, right? So you're getting female sex hormones. Those female sex hormones help with hair growth. Your body makes its own female sex hormones. But because I switched literally overnight, it was I decided the night next day onwards, and since then, ever since I've been vegan.
Okay.
So the first month, my body had to readjust to make the hormones itself because I'm not getting the supply from outside. For the first 6 to 8 months, not the first month. It takes time because you're reteaching your body. And my hair health went for an absolute toss.
Okay.
My hair health was the worst. I was seeing so much of hair fall and I was seeing so much of hair damage, and it's amazing now.
Yeah.
But I was seeing a lot of impact in terms of my hair health when I just switched to a vegan diet, which many people who are just transitioning, this can absolutely happen because you're getting certain nutrients unconsciously from your milk or meat supply. Carnitine is another one. Your body will make it. It is designed to make. So eventually, it will start making its own. But the first few months can be really, really difficult. So, and then I was also looking up to a lot of people who are also vegan, but they were struggling with like low hair or no hair, and I was like, what is going on?
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
probably not the best diet for the hair, but it will start remaking. And this is coming from experience of being on a plant-based diet for years now, and you're not going to have to compromise on anything.
Okay,
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah.
It was really, really nice to have you, Roshni.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having. Thanks for thinking about me, and I'm so glad we did this together.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of mothers, pregnant women as well, I think for themselves, they're going to gain so much knowledge and assurance. And
Yes.
possibly
Yeah.
some content they can send to their in-laws,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
family in
Yeah.
general to make
Yeah.
sure that, to stay
Yeah.
away from certain
Yeah, I
products.
don't think anyone's intention is wrong. Everyone's really, really concerned about the baby and the mother. It's just the direction, and we carry a lot of tradition which is outdated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I have a glass here, thank you. If I bend down and take this in the middle, is her frame affected? No, right? Okay. Yeah, so
B12 is in our generation.
yeah, that's very interesting. Can you